Marci Robles is different as a woman coaching men. She's in her first year leading the men's rowing program at JU, but being a female surrounded by males in this particular sport is not as unique as you might think.
It's actually pretty common. For coxswains, there's a weight minimum, and it's a lot easier to find, girls that are closer to that weight minimum than it is to find guys. So there are a number of women on men's teams, which is unique in terms of collegiate sport, but not that unique as far as rowing goes.
Robles was a coxswain herself at Boston College for 4 years and helped lead her lightweight team to several top finishes while in command of the boat. The unique role of the coxswain helped put her in a coaching mindset at a young age.
So the rowers in the boat are actually going backwards, and the coxswain's job is to steer. So safety is a priority, but steering is a very close second. Whether it's in the fall and they're racing 5K with turns, or in the spring where they're racing 2K and it's a straight line from start to finish, they want to take the fastest line possible. So their main responsibility is steering, and they're information providers. They give the rowers information as far as where they are in the race, where they are in the race plan, where other boats are. How much distance they have left. They're really the eyes and ears of the crew, and help the guys get a sense of where everything is so that the rowers can stay focused on what they're doing.
Once her collegiate career ended, she surprised herself even by jumping right into coaching.
At the end of my senior year, I got a call from the head coach of my brother's school. So I went to an all-girls school, and the girls' school has a very successful team, and the brother's school has also a very successful team. And so he is a friend of the family, and he called me up, and they needed a freshman coach for the girls team, and so he kind of roped me in. I was a little resistant at first. I was sort of ready to be done with rowing, but he called me up, and I met with him and the head women's coach, and I coached freshman girls my first year at college.
She wasn't ready to completely immerse herself into coaching, however, and attempted to transition away from rowing, but in the end was drawn back to the sport she loved.
So I coached in DC for a year, and then I moved up to Boston to go to grad school. And I actually went back to coxing for a club team, and so sort of left coaching altogether. Finished grad school, and I couldn't get a job in my field, and so I moved home, and this opportunity presented itself where I was able to volunteer at Georgetown. And about halfway through the year, something just clicked, and I realized that I could get paid to do what I loved, and that seemed like a more realistic goal than it had before.
After coaching on the women's side for several years at both Georgetown and Gonzaga, Robles set her eyes on something new, yet still familiar: men's rowing.
I actually left Gonzaga with that goal in mind before this opportunity presented itself. And so I had been thinking for a while about how I wanted to switch over to the men's side, because there just aren't a lot of women who do that. And I knew that my experience coxing men in college, was hoping that was going to be a strength, and I was comfortable around male athletes. I don't really treat them any differently than I treat my female athletes. So I quit my job, and I moved home, and I started looking for jobs in men's rowing, and this worked out amazingly. I mean, it's an incredible opportunity, and it was great that Jim is someone that I know and have known for a couple of years and have worked with, and so it just seemed like the perfect partnership.
Director of rowing Jim Mitchell was looking for someone to help lead the men's team at JU, and his familiarity with Robles made the decision easy for both sides. But that's not to say it didn't require a bit of an adjustment.
I think it's been an interesting transition for everybody, in that there's a little bit of a different philosophy in terms of how to take the rowing stroke, and the training program is a little bit different than what they're used to. So everybody's learning together, myself included.
The growth of rowing in the South has helped Robles transition from the country's more prominent rowing communities where she had coached previously.
The first intercollegiate competition was a rowing race between Harvard and Yale. And so it is definitely a very northeast-oriented sport, and has eventually grown out of Boston and Philly and New York. It's grown a lot in the West Coast as well. I mean, Cal and Washington have always had big teams. Actually, there's a book that just came out about the 1936 Olympic crew that was from the University of Washington that won gold in the Olympics that were held in Germany in a pretty tricky time. And so West Coast rowing was definitely making a statement for sure. Rowing was actually really popular. There was a lot of betting in rowing, and they would fill rail cars with people and drive them along the race courses, and people were cheering for teams like Washington and Cal and Harvard and Yale and Navy and Syracuse. I mean, it goes way back, and so the popularity has definitely died down a bit, but there, recently there's definitely been a resurgence, especially at the high school level as well. So it's big in the Northeast, it's big in the Mid-Atlantic, it's big on the West Coast, and it's getting bigger in Florida, and in the Midwest and in the South, which is really cool to see.
While Jacksonville is not a traditional rowing area, the weather and JU's location on the St. Johns River are some of its huge advantages when it comes to recruiting.
You can pretty much row year-round. I mean, this is the first November I've had in a long time where I've actually been excited about the weather. It's mid-70s out, and it's gorgeous, and we're a weekend in November. I mean, I don't know anybody else in the country who's able to boast about weather like that. Maybe California, but I think for especially the kids who are in the colder climates, being able to row year-round and not have to be indoors for months at a time, I think is very attractive. It's so convenient. You spend so much time during your college day, transitioning from one activity to another. The more you can cut down your commute going to practice and then back to breakfast and to class, the easier. I've had half-hour drives just to get out to the boathouse, and that's an hour round trip. And so being able to stumble out of your dorm room and have the river and the boathouse right there is pretty great.
There are still some challenges as Robles adapts to her new role as head coach, especially in communication, both with her having never been a true rower and getting through to men.
The unique part about being a coxswain who has turned into a coach is that I've never been a rower before. So I don't have that perspective of someone who's going through the physical grind, and so I think that's hard to balance a little bit because it's a completely different experience. But in terms of communication and establishing relationships and really getting a good pulse on your crew and on your team, I think those are skills that have definitely developed because of my position as a coxswain. I think the communication is a little bit different, but it's like that on any team. There were definitely on my teams of female athletes, not everybody communicates the same way, and it's the same thing with guys. They don't all communicate the same way, and so I think their interactions are, a little bit different than maybe women's teams, but they all have the same expectations and the same goals in mind. So I don't know that I like one better, but I feel equally comfortable in both for sure.
Does she notice any difference in the way her male rowers respond to having a woman coaching them?
I honestly think they don't care. They want to go fast and they want to win. And I think as long as they have guidance and support, that's really all that matters. I mean, I don't treat them any differently than I do with my female athletes, and so it's not a big deal to them, which is great. It shouldn't be.
Robles is currently one of 3 female head coaches of men's rowing teams in the country, but to her, she sees it as a part of a process to becoming less of a big deal for women to coach men across all sports.
I don't know that I'm a trendsetter. There are definitely women before me who have been more trailblazers than I, and so I've sort of set that as a goal, at least for women who are interested in getting into men's rowing. I think I just want to open up a career for women and sort of see myself as part of a transition, not as anything special, just sort of a way to get women to a place where they're not being questioned about their gender because they're coaching men's team. They're just another coach. There aren't a lot of men, at least that I know, that get asked why they coach women. And it would be great if we could get to that same point with women coaching men. So I just hope to sort of be a link to that place. I think even in this year alone, there have been a number of women, not just in collegiate sports, but I think in Europe as well. I think there's a soccer league where they've had a woman be the program manager. It's definitely becoming more of a trend, and I think the more comfortable women are applying to men's jobs and men having women as their coaches, the less of a deal it's going to be.